Computer predicts the end of civilization. I haven't watched it, but the title got me.
It's not some science fantasy effect.
Sliver, what is going on?
This
Give us videos to watch.
Largest computer
We'll be the best React, Andy.
Past, present, and future of planet Earth. The program was originally devised by a scientist working from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology,
dude,
Jay Forrester.
It's getting.
It was developed
it'll get more interaction than Yu-Gi-Oh! For some reason, YouTube Yu-Gi-Oh! Hates us. Hates our Yu-Gi-Oh! videos. Why am I getting feedback here?
To present a complex model of the world and what we humans are doing to it.
Wait, start.
It's not some science fantasy effect from 2001. This electronic display emanating from Australia's largest computer is a picture.
They said 2001 like that's the future. This was made in 1973.
The condition, past, present, and future of planet Earth. The program was originally devised by a scientist working from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Jay Forrester. It was developed under the auspices of the Club of Rome by an MIT research team to present a complex model of the world and what we humans are doing.
Is that better? I don't know.
The program, called World 1, doesn't pretend to be a precise forecast. What it does for the first time in man's history on the planet is to look at the world as one system. It shows that Earth cannot sustain present population and industrial growth for much more than a few decades. It shows that simply cleaning up our car exhausts and making some small effort to limit our families simply isn't enough.
Not enough.
It's like an electronic guided tour of our global behavior since 1900 and where that behavior will lead us. Well, this is the printed version of what we've just seen on the television screen. And what looks at first to be just a maze of computer characteristics is really a system of very simple graphs which
Wait, so what's going to kill us?
What's going to happen to the planet over the next 150 years if we
Wait, did it say 2001? It's over. The world ended 24 years ago.
Down the left-hand side of the graph is the date, 1900, 1940, 1980, 2020, right down
they have
to
2020 on there.
2060. Now, each of these lines of letters represents a curve showing some aspect of the condition of the planet. The further out this way they go, the greater that figure is. The further this way, the less. For example, P represents population. So here it is at 1900. And then it comes up to 1940. It starts to take off.
I want to know what they thought the population was going to be.
And then it starts to peter off. Let's now have a look at this next curve, the Q curve, which is the quality of life. And this is represented by, for example, the amount of space people have, the amount of money they have to spend, the amount of food they have to eat. Now, it increases rapidly.
As the population goes up, the quality of life dramatically goes down. That's terrible.
To 1940, but from 1940 on, the quality of life diminishes. And here we are about the turn of the century, and we come up to the year 2020, and it's really come right back. More people, of course,
broke and hungry, everyone.
Start to chew up your
all of us with nothing.
Resources.
We saw the other day that the top wait, what was it? The top 10% of earners are accounting for 50% of all the consumer spending. Cars, luxury items, not necessities. The top 10% are buying 50% of all the luxury, not even luxury, consumer items. You could, I don't even know what do you want to call that? That could be Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We play Yu-Gi-Oh here. Vibes, we'll get to Yu-Gi-Oh later, but if I start talking about Yu-Gi-Oh now, I gotta edit this out later. It just makes my job complicated. I am not, well, the funny thing is, if you are in America or any, what they call first world country, that you're in the top 1% of the global population, which that should put some perspective into how lucky that you are. Yeah, that's all you can say about that.
And this is this curve here, the N curve. And it shows that slowly but steadily, the pool of natural wealth in the world, natural resources, minerals, oil, and so on, is slowly but steadily diminishing. So this is the situation. As population increases, the quality of life decreases, and the supply of natural resources decreases. But have a look at this curve.
Well, this
here.
all seems natural,
This
honestly.
is called the Z curve, and it represents pollution. Now, predictably enough, as the population increases up to 1980, pollution increases. There's more rubbish. But from 1980 to the year 2020, pollution
They just
really
love
takes
2020.
off. This is assuming, of course, that we don't do anything about it. So the year 2020, the condition of the planet starts to become highly critical. And if we don't do anything about it, this is what's going to happen. The quality of life is going to go right back to practically zero.
That's probably where we're at about right now. All the way down there.
Pollution is going to become so serious,
My room?
right out here, that it will start to kill
My
you.
room's pretty clean. Don't
So
look
the
at the side
population
over
will
here
diminish.
that's off camera, though.
Right back here, less than it was in the year 1900.
It's pretty
And at
clean.
this stage, around about the year 2040, 2050, civilized life as we know it on this planet will cease to exist.
Wait, what? Yeah, that's where we're headed to.
Here,
Hold on,
less
hold
than
on. What
it
did he
was in the
say?
year 1900. And at this stage, around about the year 2040, 2050, civilized life as we know it on this planet will cease to exist.
Civilized life will cease to exist by 2050.
It won't be allowed to happen. But it's taken this kind of shock treatment to nudge governments into doing something, and slowly we are. We're starting to clean up our atmosphere. We're starting to recycle our rubbish. We're doing something
All right, maybe
positive about
this is what
population
could have
control.
happened.
But so far, our efforts have really been just a drop in the ocean. The Club of Rome comprises some 70 men of widely varying backgrounds. But their common concern
room
is
reveal?
that the world problems cannot be solved
how many
by
subs?
individual nations. I spoke with
I
Professor
don't
Hugo
know.
Tiemann, director of the Battelle Institute, Geneva.
It's not messy.
Aurelio Pache, founder of the club, and Dr. Alexander King, director of the World Bank and the United Nations OECD. Dr. King, now you're describing the world as a closed system where all these things are interrelated, and yet the government, the control of the system is by individual nation states. Now, how do you convince them to cooperate?
The sovereignty of these nations is no longer as absolute as it was. There's a gradual diminishing, whittling away of sovereignty, little bit.
What the hell is he talking about?
Especially, of course, in the smaller countries where it's more obvious. But the bigger countries have to do a good deal of this by agreeing with.
Who are they losing their sovereignty to?
Arrangements for the law of the seas, or for the limits of fishing, or for control of the wavelengths in radio, and 101 other things. But especially in the technological field, I think this is going to be increasingly so because of developments next year. I was at an important meeting in Washington a couple of weeks ago, and Peterson, the former Secretary of Commerce,
This is an important guy.
was saying the same thing from an economic point of view. That the general world economic situation, the interdependence of countries on their food and fuels and so on, is leading to an interdependence which has seeds of draining away of sovereignty within it. So I don't think one can envisage an idealistic of jumping to a world federalism or anything of that sort. But the building up probably in the next decade in a number of particularly sensitive fields like energy, raw materials, the use of the oceans, space and so on, of a number of what people are tending to call regimes, which will not be ordinary United Nations type of organizations, but semi-management organizations.
I'm not surprised at all if you don't fish, don't harvest them, and they are free to, populate. You'll get the best of the best ones.
Organizations. There'll be a great deal of consent in them.
Dr. Pache views the European common market as an elementary example of the kind of regional cooperative which is going to be necessary. What responsibilities does he see for Australia?
Australia, you are in a splendid position.
What should we do?
You have food, energy, space. you are distant from other centers, so you can, for a longer time, feel rather more independent than interdependent. But things of the world are going so fast that I think that an enlightened leadership in Australia should see down the road that Australia will have to lose some of its.
Well, where's this guy from? This guy's from Australia. What kind of accent is that?
In order to acquire something
Acquire.
else, which
This
may
guy's
be,
Italian.
Purely political in very wide sense.
He said
maybe
pearly.
also security.
The Club of Rome is reluctant to point the finger at any one nation. Yet clearly, nations like the United States, which consumes approximately 60% of the world's resources, will, in the Club's view, have to accept a severe cutback in its voracious appetite. But the Club's utterances are cloaked in a velvet democracy, in the hope that their facts will gently persuade.
We will ask who is making the decision, and whether the decision makers of today, whether they perceive the problems, what kind of problems, and the interactions of the problems. That's a very pragmatic approach.
Has the time come, Dr. King, when we're going to have to say we can no longer entrust our resources and the exploitation of those resources to private enterprise? Has the time come when governments will simply have to take more control?
Simple nationalization and things like that wouldn't help at all, because we've got to keep an incentive approach. And many of the good aspects of private enterprise are very necessary here, but not in the old exploitative way where the market forces dominated the whole situation.
Dr. Pichai, can you tell me what my lifestyle will be in 100 years' time? What sort of car I'll
This
drive,
could be
what sort of
good.
house I'll live in, what sort of food I'll be eating?
It's not 100
Probably
years.
you
So
will have a smaller car.
everything's getting
You will
bigger.
use more common transport means.
You will be a beggar in the streets.
You will work many far less hours.
You will work less. Everyone's just working more. This is not the way things are going.
You will have a wider
Oh, God.
cultural possibilities that today
No.
you will not be so
We're all
much pressed
screwed.
by immediate needs, because through technology, organization of the markets, the basic needs will be taken care of.
When are we gonna hit that point? Because it's been like, wait, it's been 27, 47. It's been 52 years or some shit since this came out, since this video was filmed. And he's talking about what it's gonna be like 100 years from then. So it's been 50 years or something.
And I think that you will love nature and continue then what
Things have got to get worse before it gets better. So maybe the rough part. We're in the rough part, and everything's going to get better because of it.
I think you are doing now to protect our environment, to avoid this man-made world where the creatures of nature, the animals, the plants, the green spaces, the wildernesses are bound to disappear.
What?
To the Club of Rome, the status symbols of the
Where's
year
the trees gonna
2000
go?
will be the inverse of today's. Prestige will stem from low consumption. That personal consumption will have to be less is plain enough. But for that privation to be seen as prestigious would seem to indicate some radical rethinking, at least for the fat cats of the planet.
Kind of interesting. They were right, though. Everything's screwed. How do we... That's how you do that. That's how... Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. Yeah, imagine you could get frozen and then just wake you up and things get better. I think a lot of people would want to do that, though. Or you get frozen and things get worse and they don't wake you up and you're frozen.